Really, nigga?
Huh? Bro, what? Is bro not a god? What is going on?
Angry?
Not really. What I do now is focus all my power right around here in the middle of my back.
Hey, bro, come on now, dog.
Learned it so fast!
Come on, man. Hey, bro, come on now, dog.
I've never felt so...
Tingly feeling in your back? Dude, what? Bro, what? How is Future Trunks hanging with the super... Bro, what?
Ouch. Oh, man.
What? How is Goku lacking like this, dude? Like, what's going on? What? Dragonball Super is a failure. It's failed as characters. It's failed the stories that they want to tell. It's clear to me that they would rather sell toys than create compelling stories. They would rather add transformations that add no value to the show. And unfortunately, most important of all, they failed their fans. This version of Dragon Ball is going to be the one that this next generation is going to forever attach their childhood to. While it's still being made by the original creator Akira Toriyama, far too much substance has been sacrificed to keep the cash cow going. This video will break down why I think Dragon Ball Super is a failure. Now, let's give you guys some due context. I made a video not too long ago speaking about the degradation of quality in children's entertainment, spanning from gaming, cartoons, and movies. This trend is also infected Dragon Ball as well, in particular Dragon Ball Super. Now, for people that are part of the older generation, this is something we may not want to admit, but Dragon Ball Super is definitely directed to a younger audience, ranging from the ages from 11, 12, 13 years old, more so the pre-teen years. If we're talking about priorities, what they want to see is they want to see their characters throwing hands and looking damn cool doing it. Now, without a doubt, this show is able to deliver that in leaps and bounds. It continues to motivate people to continue to buy their toys, games, and huge other merchandise that's available to them. Now, don't get me wrong, the revitalization of Dragon Ball was a phenomenal prospect. It's been years since we've had a new and exciting Dragon Ball story. Dragon Ball GT definitely had its moments, but it lacked the length and the substance to be a satisfactory ending to such a legendary show. You know, Super Saiyan 4 is still definitely one of my favorite transformations of all time, and the story ideas are definitely still superb in concept. They just needed some more time to develop and some more direct input from Akira Toriyama and some really good and quality writers. Since then, we've gotten some pretty decent video games along the way, but the fans definitely longed for a return of the legendary series, of course. But back in 2013, our famine for Dragon Ball content ended with the release of the Battle of Gods movie. Then very shortly afterwards, the Resurrection of F movie came out. And then afterwards, we got a full-blown TV series to bring back Dragon Balls back to its prime. Dragon Ball Super came back as a full weekly TV show, something we haven't seen in an extended period of time. Usually anime tends to be dropping 20-30 episodes a year, and then they stop for a little bit, then they come back the next year and drop with another 30 episodes. This was Dragon Ball coming back right into form with new episodes being dropped almost on a weekly basis. Consistency back. Hardcore fans were excited, old generation was excited, the new generation was hyped to finally experience their very own version of Dragon Ball brought to them fresh and brand new. Now, I have a huge amount of issues with this entire series, so I'm going to break down the multiple issues that every single arc faces piece by piece. I'm going to break this down, and there will be timestamps in the description and on the video, so you'll be easily be able to move to whichever arc where you have the most interest in. Dragonball Super is big, and there is a lot to talk about. So let's get right into it. Before we even get into the multiple storytelling, character-related things that Dragon Ball Super faces in each subsequent arc, I need to get right off the bat and talk about the art style and the animation. Now, these two factors, the art style and the animation, these are quite some important parts of the show, because this is of course a battle-orientated anime. The visuals and how everything looks is extremely important. That's part of the reason why the Super Saiyan transformation and Dragon Ball Z has become so famous over the years. Now, I'll be talking about Dragon Ball Super as it was released. I of course understand that the Blu-ray version released afterwards in the Blu-ray sets, they of course made some improvements to the art, the animation, to ensure that some of the wonky issues were taken care of. Now, if we're talking about looking at the show from an art style perspective, it is a direct downgrade from Dragon Ball Z. I have no problem with the difference, but I definitely do have a big problem with worse. Animation issues can be put aside from time to time, but a lackluster art style is problematic. Now, the art is fine enough, but I do have to make it clear to all of you that Super is particularly worse because the art style is simply poor. I still definitely enjoyed the show, but Buu Saga DBZ was when the art style was truly perfected. And if you just look at the images that I'll show you on screen, you'll definitely be able to see that the quality is definitely substantial, and Z definitely takes the cake. And if we were following Super back in the day when it was being released at the time, and these images that I'm going to show you right now are going to prove my points. Particularly when they were reanimating the Battle of Gods arc, there were definitely a whole lot of sketchy things that happened throughout the way. Wonky animations aren't lacquer. Luckily, these issues didn't persist, and everything was pretty much great about the Zamasu. By the time we got to the Zamasu and futuretrunks arc, by the Tournament of Power, everything was running pretty smoothly. They were running a pretty smooth ship, and even the art style itself definitely improved. But in my personal opinion, shows such as Z, even GT, still take the cake for me. That art style is just simply objectively better looking and more detailed. But let's get right into it and consider the first real arc of Dragon Ball Super, the Battle of Gods movie adaptation. The Battle of Gods arc. Now let's just start off with the characterizations of the characters in this arc. This is actually surprisingly probably the best Goku we have in comparison to how he acts in the subsequent arcs. He takes the threat of Beerus extremely seriously while remaining his, somewhat light-hearted self. For the first time, we're happy to get some new content. It's good to see them, remain somewhat consistent. Unfortunately, that won't be lasting too long. Now, while I'm giving some decent praise to their characters being consistent in this arc, there are three characters that needed substantial development over the time skip, particularly Goten and Trunks. They're still kids. Wait a minute. Why? Why are they still kids? At their current age, it's pretty much impossible for them to have any substantial character development or for them to get any physically stronger. The potential is of course huge for these characters, and I see it as, really nothing but laziness for them to not progress in any sense. Stagnation and character regression is a theme that plagues this series pretty strongly. This has also happened to the Prince of All Saiyans Vegeta. The character development that he made by the end of Z is somewhat lost. GT also does this actually pretty well. He's a proud Saiyan, but humility has become a trait that he has worked hard to cultivate. Nor was he really obsessed with surpassing Goku like before at every single turn. As we will see in the coming arcs, he's right back on the troublesome horse. He's the exact same character we had pretty much before he was infected by Majin. The two characters who've actually made good developments are Gohan and Piccolo. Piccolo has become an absolute sweetheart. In the picture scene that I'll show you right now looks really cool, and it actually really warms my heart to see them all together as, an actual family. And Gohan has also finally made a decision himself to finally quit being wishy-washy and become a fully fledged scholar, almost abandoning the warrior path. I was genuinely happy with this because he's become a family man and he's chosen a life of peace. It's disappointing that later in the next coming arc, he's reprimanded by this decision, but we'll discuss that more in the Resurrection of F arc. Now, if we're to summarize this arc, the god of destruction Beerus and his assigned Archangel Whis are put into the Dragon Ball mix. My guess is that the goal was to open a new godly can of worms with the introduction of deities into the world of Dragon Ball. The same thing that happened when it was introduced to us, that Goku was actually an alien from a special warrior alien race. They definitely successfully did this, as this was the only genuine way to increase the stakes at all. Abandoning normal ki for this brand new concept of God ki was very interesting and cool. From what we've seen from the series, only a few people, only a few amount of characters are able to tap into this new echelon, which is God ki. Beerus, obviously itching for a challenge, pulls up to Goku and the squad, and after a few L's, after getting that God ki, of course, God ki, he can finally go somewhat toe-to-toe with Beerus. This movie was definitely the can opener that this series definitely needed. Now, I'll be honest, I'm sad that this completely retcons GT, but out of all of the arcs, I actually really enjoyed this one. This was a great way to finally bring the Saiyans we love so dear out of retirement by making them literal gods. But what happens afterwards regarding the transformation and how it's handled, the world building, some very questionable decisions were made for sure. Regardless of that, I have to give them their flowers. This is a very good experience. An 8 out of 10 for Battle of Gods. The arc is great, the movie was great, and the show definitely did its best to try and fill in the blanks. Ooh, doggy. Oh man. Yes, this arc, this is kind of essentially a short rehash of the Namek saga, but essentially with less emotional weight. The characterizations are here are pretty much okay, except for Goku. I want to mention Vegeta again, as he will pretty much remain the same throughout the entire show. This is definitely, though, the beginning of the decline of Goku's character and the abandonment of consistency and continuity in the show. Starting with the elephant in the room, the blaster shot that KO'd Super Saiyan Blue Goku still stumps me to this day. The excuse that he let his guard down, is utter hogwash, bro. When you're powered up to that level of power, such blasts shouldn't be even able to scratch the lad. Poor writing and honestly a bad retcon in my personal opinion. It just messes up a lot of things, because this would immediately mean that sneak attacks do lethal damage just because the combatant doesn't see the hit coming to defend themselves. Like, it completely messes up the entire dynamic of the show. But anyway, let's consider the characters of Goku and Gohan in this arc. This is when Goku goes into the sharp decline of becoming a bumbling idiot. He lets Frieza blow up the planet. It's a ridiculous mistake for him to allow it to happen, especially considering the history. He knows how desperate, conniving, and spiteful that damn lizard is. Not killing him quickly is a mistake that I can't imagine an old and matured Goku making. Regardless, this wasn't the worst, not yet anyway. Now, Gohan is clearly shown to us to be a top scholar and a family man now. He's chosen to go a different direction in his life. So it's surprising to me when he's shamed by the other Z fighters for not being a competent warrior anymore. He's clearly chosen to live a life of peace. It's clear to me that Toriyama, to this day, still doesn't exactly know what to do with Gohan. He's broken his potential limits multiple times, but then stops training and goes back to square one. Can you guys like actually make a decision on what you want to do with this guy? Like, I'm tired of him constantly disappointing the fans for not choosing a path. I do know that he's gotten a brand new power in the new movie Dragonball Superhero Beast Gohan. All I want is consistency though. Is the boy a warrior or a scholar? And if he will do both, I don't want to hear any more excuses of him being weak and lazy for him not training. Make a choice or find some sort of balance between the character. This arc was definitely a visual spectacle in terms of the movie, but the series, not so much. The new transformation and things that happened in this arc were very, very cool, but without that, the lack of substance in this arc is genuinely pushed to the forefront. There isn't really much to this arc other than fighting Frieza. Let's be absolutely honest, guys. So the essential plot is that Frieza returns after being dead, after being wished back for his henchmen. He trains hard for about 4 months and has now pushed himself to be on the level to be as powerful as deities. Goku and Vegeta also come in with their brand new Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan transformations to the test, and they end up proving to be too much for the little guy. As usual, he tries to blow up the planet as he is a very sore loser, and the heroes by the end of it all are saved by a very, very convenient time rewind power that Whis has that he pulled out of his buttocks. Like, I don't know what happened there, but DBS these days, they like to solve their problems with hacks. So whatever, bro. After the hack's ability, Goku is able to fry the lizard dude in one shot. The arc is just meh, very average. I would like to give the movie a 6.5 as the visuals definitely were spectacular, but as we're talking about the show, and Dragonball Super, how they handled the animation, the art style, everything that was handled. If you're watching it on release, you are very unsatisfied with the fights and the way that everything was put together. In my opinion, it's a 5 out of 10 if we're considering the Resurrection F. It's nothing fresh, it's nothing new. The only thing new about it are the transformations, a Golden Frieza and Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. But other than that, sketchy visual arts, sketchy animations, a 5 out of 10. Now for Universe 6 versus Universe 7 arc. While I have a lot of beef with Dragon Ball Super in general going forward, I'll be honest, in my personal opinion, this is by far the best arc in all of Dragon Ball Super. Not too long, not too short. The pacing is literal perfection, the fights aren't too long, and plenty of characters get their due time to shine. The characterizations are perfect too. We're gently reminded why Goku is a martial arts genius, and why Vegeta will always lack that X factor. Each battle was interesting, and it was a good way to introduce the audience to the concept of other universes. So the premise is that Beerus and Champa regularly squabble, but since they can't fight each other because they're battle of their gods of destruction, their battles will pretty much destroy their subsequent universes, and that will cause many issues. So they'll send their own warriors to fight in their stead. With the reward of a wish from the Super Dragonballs, the battle is set with many creatures and a few copycat characters such as the Frieza type and the other Universe 6 Saiyans. The battle with Vegeta was a great and prideful moment for him, the fight between Vegeta and Kaba. Him helping him to reach the Super Saiyan transformation was a really great moment. Then of course we have the final and cool climactic battle of Goku versus Hit. After Vegeta's failure, it's great to see Goku figure out Hit, essential thing, blow by blow, even before transformation. I really like that the transformation wasn't used to defeat Hit, not a brand new transformation wasn't used to defeat it, but a technique that we know and love. Mixing Kaioken with Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan was a great move. It increased the stakes as we know about the huge negative drawbacks of using Kaioken. The transformation looked extremely cool. Overall, the arc was great. The fights looked great. The battles were intense, using a decent amount of combat and intelligence. It had a satisfying end as well, and even though Goku didn't get the W, it was still satisfying. Even though this arc was, if you really think about it, an appetizer or test run for the Tournament of Power, they completely knocked it out of the park. It's a 9 out of 10, for sure. One of my favorite arcs out there, and if you don't believe me, I thoroughly recommend that you go back and watch this arc. It's very good. It's not too long, it's not too short, but it's really good. The combat is great, and it's a really good tournament arc. But before we head on over and consider the next arc, I need to just talk about the various issues that I have with Zeno. The inherent issue with Zeno, not particularly with him and how he's executed as a character. I actually don't mind his childlike nature. Depending on the context, it can actually be quite interesting and entertaining. Maybe he was kind of made to mirror the childlike audience that'll be the majority of the people that end up watching the show. But Zeno is a bad character by his design and execution, and I don't mean this physically. His implementation completely removes tension in stakes. Why? Because his actions, particularly taken in the very next arc, in the Future Trunks arc. I'll go into more detail there, but he is the solution to all the problems. Let's say an enemy springs up that's stronger than Beerus and Whis. They get beaten to a pulp. Let's even say that perhaps Goku has even maybe surpassed Beerus in some way. If that enemy beats Goku, Zeno is the get out of jail free card. His character is fine, but his power is just far too overpowered. How can I be worried about any character if I know that Zeno is there, who's Goku's good buddy by the way, to be there to secure the W? Tension and stakes cannot be there if there is somebody who is all powerful, who will be able to save you at all times. Well then, let's jump on over to another arc that I've actually made an entire dedicated video on the insurmountable beef that I have with the way this arc was handled and Future Trunks. I'll put the video down in my description, and if you head on over to my channel, it'll be one of the first videos that you're going to have a look at and see. So I'm not going to mention him much here. For my full take on that blunder, check out the video in the description. So let's get right onto the arc. The stupidity of Goku and Vegeta continues here, as in the very beginning of the arc, they actually had an opportunity to completely wreck Gokublack as soon as he appears in front of them. But unfortunately, because of their Saiyan instincts and them wanting to enjoy the fight, they ended up messing up the timeline in the future a whole lot more. Bro, how could you act in such a way when literally the sanctity of an entire timeline future is in the balance, but you want to, charge up. Let me get a feel for the guy. Bro, what? Are we serious, dude? Not in this context. Okay, and how can I be worried about anything if I know for a fact that Goku's gonna call up his good buddy, Zeno, to call in and lend a helping hand? Stakes and tension are at an absolute zero. Some people may argue, this is a small gripe, just let it go, bro. You're taking Dragon Ball a little bit too seriously. But tension and stakes are necessary to have a compelling story. If there is nothing on the line, ever, how can I truly be invested in the show? Goku being a fool and never taking anything seriously definitely makes this 10 times worse. Now, at the very least, in the final battle, they definitely do get serious. But unfortunately, their previous actions of letting Gokublack power up to this level really take the tension away, kind of pisses me off a bit. And I can't really feel sorry because they've definitely worsened the problem. And oh, goodness me, that spirit bomb using Trunks, the spirit sword, whatever you want to call it. How is it that the power of less than 30 people who are not trained with ki are able to pool enough energy to defeat someone who is probably 1,000,000 times stronger than Kid Buu? Absolutely ridiculous. Now, if we summarize this arc, It's essentially two antagonists, the Supreme Kai or Supreme Kai in training, Zamasu and Gokublack. They're the main antagonists, and they bring back a fan favorite of ours, Futuretrunks, but unfortunately he's come back because another enemy is beginning to terrorize them. The charm of this arc is that we are fighting an evil Goku and an evil Supreme Kai. I would actually personally rate this arc a 7 out of 10 under normal circumstances. It was definitely entertaining enough, and as every single episode came out, I was hyped to see what was going to come out next. Even this arc being a little bit contrived, the fan service definitely was plentiful. Despite that, all the inconsistencies, the retcons, the things, the way they handled the Potara fusion, ridiculous, and I mean ridiculous power-ups, especially for a battle-focused anime, an anime where consistency and power level and strength levels matter so much. All of these factors put together forced me to rate this arc a 6 out of 10. To this day, Super Saiyan Rage, the power that Trunks taps into, still has not been explained substantially, and to this day that is why I will continue to have beef and issues with that arc as a whole. As I said before, go ahead and check out my video on the multiple issues that I have with Futuretrunks, and as I talk about the varying contrasts between the quality of the character that we have in Dragon Ball Z and the quality of characters that we have here in DBS. Oh man, oh man, oh man, we finally arrived to the big boy. The one that was supposed to shoot the show into the stratosphere, and it definitely did. If we're talking purely entertainment, Dragon Ball Super does not disappoint at all. But when you start using your brain and start thinking about things for longer than 5 minutes, that's when things definitely do start to fall apart. Now, I'll be honest, this arc, this Tournament of Power arc is actually quite good. The action is phenomenal and there are some legendary moments that come from this very arc. But there are 3 fundamental issues with this arc that make it genuinely difficult to enjoy. Now, the 3 fundamental issues that are with this arc are 1, consistency with the power levels and particularly respect regarding Dragon Ball Z's very own legendary transformation. Point number 2, money and ulterior motives. What immediately comes to mind is Ultra Instinct, and more so, mastered Ultra Instinct. And the third and final point, how is the series going to move forward with a transformation as paramount and as important as Ultra Instinct? This transformation has a finality to it, a completion to it. Like, how much further can they power up, or in what way will they become stronger? Now, let's start right off with the points, and I'll break these down as we continue with the discussion. The characterization in this arc is fine. I was happy to see that we finally got a serious Goku when he uses Ultra Instinct, something we've definitely been sorely missing in the show. Now, let's get on right with the first point, the consistency of the power levels, and more importantly, how some characters can actually power up to ridiculous levels so quickly. You know exactly who I'm talking about. The 2 female characters. The 2 characters that you even mention in any form of negative light. You'll be identified as a sexist. Or you just hate women. You just don't like women being strong. No. The issues that absolutely everyone has with these 2 characters are how they handled, how they disrespect everything that Dragon Ball Z worked so hard to build up, and their overall execution. How can the legendary transformation of the Saiyan race be reduced to a tingly feeling in your back? Now, Toriyama may no longer care about such things, but we as the fans care a great deal about the integrity of such a transformation. Not only is the Super Saiyan transformation very cool, it's one of the most iconic transformation in anime history, without fail. And it is also one of the most difficult forms for Saiyans to attain. Vegeta and most Saiyans spend their entire lives in search of power and this legendary transformation. But for Universe 6 to reduce it to absolutely nothing? absolutely disrespectful, dog. This power is supposed to manifest as a response to a need for power, not just a bloody tingly feeling in your back. Man, you can make the argument, oh, I'm a sexist, and no one complained about this when Goten and Trunks did the exact same thing in the Buu Saga. I'll say that's a little bit of a different situation. There are multiple factors that have changed that situation and possibly their physiology and biology. Those two boys were born from two Saiyan men who had already achieved the legendary form. And it seems that half-breeds have a greater potential in terms of Saiyan and Saiyan potential in general. They were also exposed to stronger power levels, were exposed to people who were able to become Super Saiyan from youth. They had every single factor that was pushing you to reach that higher echelon of power from the get-go. This is something else that we also have to note, besides them just getting the transformation with such ease. From what we understand, Super Saiyan is a multiplier of your base strength. By the time Goku was fighting Frieza, he was a martial arts master and was actually close to Frieza's power level in terms of strength. The transformation though of course made the gap between the two insurmountable. Kel and Caulifla are significantly weaker. Even though we haven't been shown much of them, they seem to be rather novices in terms of combat, martial arts, and power. So, considering all of these factors, their ability to make so much progress in the tournament of power is just plain disrespectful. Even disrespects us as the viewer. It doesn't even seem plausible for a girl that recently unlocked the Super Saiyan transformation can go toe-to-toe with the legendary martial arts grandmaster Goku, who has gotten over 100 times more powerful since fighting Frieza, and this isn't even considering his godly power-up. Now add Godki, that made Super Saiyan 3 look like an absolute scrub, my G, and you expect us as fans to take this seriously? It's even more of a reason to think that a transformed Caulifla should be child's play for a god in Ultra Instinct Goku, the fusion between Kale and Caulifla. It's clear to me that Dragon Ball Super prioritizes entertainment over consistency, their legendary transformation, and pretty much all of the history that its predecessor Dragon Ball Z established. Now I understand that there are plenty of people who enjoy Super despite this, but it bothers me a great deal, and that I'd have to let things slide or dumb myself down just to enjoy the series. Even though the art style isn't as great as before, the fight and the action definitely still looks amazing. The show is a fun watch, and I was genuinely entertained during its runtime a few years ago. Now let's head on over to point number 2, ulterior motives, particularly considering the transformations in Ultra Instinct. Now, Ultra Instinct is a very cool transformation. It gives us the vibe that this is the last transformation Goku will ever attain. Goku having finally achieved perfection as a martial artist and getting closer to be that deity. I was very happy too to see that this was the first time we were actually able to see a consistently serious Goku and have a serious disposition in this arc. His goofy persona is essentially tossed a little bit to the wayside as we have more pressing matters at hand. He looked cool as hell. Goku definitely looked cool as hell, and I was happy to actually find a transformation that didn't do too much and actually kept him similar and more so looking like his base strength. But then he transformed again, but this time with white hair because he had mastered Ultra Instinct. I was like, what? You guys serious? But after I got my mind thinking a bit, got the cogs turning a wee bit, I started to notice a bit of a trend throughout the show. We got Super Saiyan God in the first arc. Then by the very next arc, we have Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, or renamed to Super Saiyan Blue, as to not be so much of a tongue twister. Then we got Super Saiyan Blue mixed with Kaioken, which only lasted about an arc, and its effectiveness was no longer used. What's the return on investment on having so many transformations in such a short period of time for such a famous series? Definitely not story-wise, definitely not character-wise. And they may look cool from time to time, but too much saturation can have negative impacts. So what did I realize? Where were they going to get a return on investment? Toys. Bloody toys and merchandise. Everybody involved can now make a big fat bag of all of these transformations, minuscule or otherwise. Because of this, transformations aren't given the legendary status that they deserve. More and more things are sacrificed instead for monetary remuneration. And this brings me to the last grievance. What's next after Ultra Instinct? This transformation, as I mentioned before, gives off, I've mastered this form, I've completed fighting, I've completed everything. The best stories have a beginning and an end. All the best things in life have to end at some point, and if they keep going, it's usually for the wrong reasons. Cash grab, and my mind unfortunately wanders to another legendary show that I love so dearly, Naruto. Naruto's goal was to become the Hokage and finally have a family and friends that truly love him. His journey was over and we were happy. While GT was also riddled with flaws, Super definitely seems to have no end in sight. They're adding more ingredients to the crockpot instead of delving deeper into the things we already have and wrap those things up or add more substance to them. The Tournament of Power was essentially the universe battle between 6 and 7, but bigger and longer and more stakes as all the universes are on the line. The tournament was a visual spectacle for sure. For absolutely sure, the battles were immense, very cool, and it was a great time. But the issues that I've mentioned before unfortunately impeded my enjoyment of the entire arc as a whole. In total, I would unfortunately have to give the Tournament of Power a 6 out of 10. In my opinion, what would have solved these issues would have been, for example, having the universe 6 Saiyans maybe turn one Saiyan into a Super Saiyan God, so at least they follow the due process for the power up. Another solution, of course, would be not to go so crazy in terms of transformation. They having only one form of Ultra Instinct, and once Goku masters that form, he is just more competent in using that form. Having Kale and Caulifla even being remotely a challenge for God Goku is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. Overall, because of all of the multiple issues that I've talked about throughout this entire video, I have to give Dragonball Super a 6 out of 10. Now the question that may come to you is, that's not crazy. You may argue, hey, if the show gets a 6 out of 10, is it really much of a failure or just a disappointment? Like, come on, bro. But we have to remember that Dragon Ball Z is one of the most popular forms of anime. No, it must be the most popular and known form of cartoon and media entertainment that's out there. That show as well definitely also had its flaws, but the writing and characters are top tier to this day. I watched the Majin Vegeta speech in front of the World Tournaments to Goku, Gohan, Supreme Kind, the announcer, on a quarterly basis. That ish has great writing, the impact, the music, everything comes together in a beautiful cocktail of emotion. So for a show that cares so much about power scaling, consistency, and transformations, for them to abandon them for a little bit more paper into their pockets is a downright disgrace in my opinion. I personally really began to watch a lot of YouTube during my youth. I used to watch deep Dragon Ball discussion videos from great YouTubers such as Quaman, Black and Fist, Geekdom 101, Rhymestyle, Laughing Stock Media, and plenty others. I genuinely loved their collaboration videos, and their headcanon and theoretical discussions on so many what-if scenarios were really, really interesting, and that's what really got me into loving YouTube. When I think of Dragon Ball Super and its inconsistencies, in my mind it would really be a waste of time and would be more frustrating than anything to have a deep or interesting conversation like we did for Dragon Ball Z. There are far too many unexplained factors, too many things that don't make sense. It's better to not think about them for too long, or you'll end up being annoyed or frustrated about the amount of holes and plot holes that the story has. Over the years, I've definitely fallen more in love with gaming, as it shows that that's the majority of the content that I make on the channel. The intricacies of that space inspire me greatly, and I'll definitely still be talking about anime a great deal. It's definitely one of my loves as well, and expect more anime content coming your way quite soon. I plan to make a video on Eren Yeager and a group discussion with some of the homies on Naruto. But unfortunately, Dragon Ball Super will not be one of my main topics of conversation. As you can see, so far I've only made 2 negative videos on Dragon Ball because of how strongly I feel about this. I feel really strongly about this because Dragon Ball Z to this day is still one of my favorite shows of all time. To see no one care about the things that are truly special to my heart is heartbreaking. I hope that one day Dragon Ball Super can make a change. I realize how unlikely that honestly is, but the best is that OG fans, what I can recommend you OG fans to do is to try and look past these issues. Look for the entertainment value in the show, and that's the only way you can really enjoy it. Change is okay, but I miss the days when Goku, Vegeta, Futuretrunks and many others were characters that I were able to look up to, and a show that we could actually respect even as we got older. A true shame what the show has become, but I guess that's part of life. In my opinion, Dragon Ball Super is a failure, and if you disagree, tell me why down there in the comments. Let's have a dialogue, let's have a discussion. I'm back on YouTube. I took a little break, was busy with a couple of things, but it was about time that I came back, and I came back with a banger. Tell me your thoughts down there in the comments, let's have a discussion. Take it easy, much more content is on the way. The steam train keeps on chugging. Let's go.